Westfall has been cleared an article by the U.S. Sun. However, notably, one person has not been cleared.
Reporter Room with Jessica Ella Davies starts now.
Hi guys, how are you? I'm going live just a couple minutes early. Happy weekend to everybody. It's great to see everybody. On your way in, if you would be so kind as to give this video a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. We'll just, you guys know I don't like to wait around too long, so I'm just going to go ahead and start doing my thank yous. I just want to start by saying I'm sharing with you today is my opinion, and opinion are not facts. So please don't send any negativity to anyone, anytime, anywhere. Let's be kind and good and decent to each other. This video is for education and entertainment purposes only. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Give this video a thumbs up on your way in. If you want to in the top chat, you just need to be subscribed for one, and you can join on the top chat. Hi, Mama Bear. Hi, Donna Renke. Hi, Mom of Two. Hi, Kaz Shaw. Great to see you. Hello, Miss Rianne Evans. All right, so I'd like to start by thanking our executive producers. I would also like to thank our producers. And our treasured channel members. I'd also like to give a big shout out to our mods. Thank you so much for being here. And I would also like to say thank you so much to all of our subscribers. We are making our way toward 15,000. We're at 14,000 subscribers and counting. So I want to thank you for that. If you would be so kind as to give this a thumbs up on your end, we are going to go ahead and start it. This is editing me. I am my video and the timeline. Okay, so what we're going to be working on. Hi, Sweet Bee. Hi, Lori. Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, Holly Go Lightly. Hi, Debbie Z. Hi, Unsolved Barb, and hi, Kitty. Of course, are all the ones I can see. Hi, Holly Go Lightly. So if you would be so kind as to give this video a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. If you want to join the top chat, you just need to be subscribed for 1 minute, and you will be helping us reach our goal of 15,000 subscribers, which I'm so grateful for. So that's a clue. Put a pin in that. Cleared him from something. Oh, it did. Thank you so much for letting me know. You know what? I think when I'm talking, I need to turn this off. Let me try that. Am I breaking up now? So we know that they're waiting. We know that they're waiting to, they need that toxicology report in their possession to make their case, right? So we know that, as we've discussed in my last few live streams, that they need that information to make their case. So why do they need the toxicology report? Well, because they need to know what happened to Kiely Rodni. So did my shutting that do the trick for you guys? Still breaking up. It's worse. Oh no. I don't know what to do. I can't control the connection. I can only control what I can control. So I'm not really sure breaking up. And they are jamming the transmission, Mace says. Thanks, Mace. Okay. Well, I guess what I'm going to do. So through the timeline together and just work on building this puzzle. So we know that Kylie arrived at the party around 10 p.m. and that's where I'm going to start today with Mags, right? We know she arrived with Mags. And I'm going back over Jane Doe number 2's statements, and I'm seeing some things that are sketchy. First of all, yeah, so number 2, I felt like we did have some sketchy things on this case with her. And there were a couple of things that I felt were self-serving. And one is that she said she didn't see Kylie with Sami, which I thought was interesting, since Sami said that she and Kylie were seen all around the party together and were apart for mere moments, right? Apart for mere moments. So if they were just apart for mere moments, wouldn't have Jane Doe number going around the party? I think she would have. So the other question is, she talked about the weather. Weather didn't comport. The weather doesn't say what she says the weather was like. Let's look at this for a second together. Well, she's organizers of the party were not Sami, but oh yes, and she very, very, very conveniently says that the organizers of the party were 3 boys, right? One boy was from her high school in Truckee, and the other 2 boys were from different high schools. But conveniently, the one boy who was from the high school in Truckee, he didn't attend the party. So again, this is like, to me, this is just like ultra convenient. I find it just, really sketchy, and I'm curious. So let's just put a pin had to say, because I think that her stance served someone who thinks she's a very good friend to and maybe wasn't such a great friend. So they were seen around the party together, according to Sami, but according to Jane Doe number 2, Kylie was Sami. So that's convenient. They were sharing drinks together, according to Sami. But according to Jane Doe, Kylie and Sami together, so she didn't see them sharing drinks. And I just find the whole thing a little bit sketchy. So let's continue on, because we're going to put the pieces of this puzzle together and we're going to see how close we can get to solving this case, because I think you guys have put a lot of it together. And yes, Holly, I think that the fighting, this whole thing, she talked about the fighting. It was just, play fighting. It wasn't a big deal, but these people brought boxing gloves. And the other reason that I don't believe Jane Doe is she said that the teenagers in her area don't look at their cell phones. They don't use their cell phones when they're at parties. Do you buy that? Because I'm not buying that. I want to know, teenagers aren't at a senior farewell party, are not taking photographs. That party, even their invitation for their party, had photographs of the last boxing match. So they definitely were taking pictures, right? I mean, come on. Let's continue on. Boys, and 2 of them were from a different high school, and one was from Truckee. However, she conveniently tells us that the organizer from Truckee, that this boy was not even at the party. So that doesn't make sense. And so is someone trying to change the narrative to help Sami Smith? The other thing she says that is raising red flags is she talks about it being rainy and cold at the party. However, here is the weather forecast for August 5th and 6th. It was not raining. I'm not sure if I buy anything that she has to say. I just find that these statements seem to be somewhat self-serving, but I will leave it to you to make up your own judgment on it. That is just my opinion. So they are kind of self-serving, right? But not serving herself. We don't know who Jane Doe number 2 is. And this is not to throw any shade at Olivia. I love Olivia. I think she did what, what she was supposed to do. She brought you guys the information and puts it to her own viewers to make up their own minds about the information that she brings them. And it's not unusual for people to keep an informant name to change their voice. That's not that unusual to keep somebody who's bringing forward information. But I'm like very suspicious as to who this person was, who she was serving, because we all know, if you saw my last couple of lives, is some criminal exposure in this case, in my opinion. Okay, so we need to talk about this belt that was hanging out of the back of the car, right? It was hanging out the back of the car. And we're going to talk about tow truck driver in just a moment. So stay with me because this all ties together. And for those of you that are just joining us, we are putting together the puzzles of the case for the Kiely Rodni case in an effort to try to figure out the truth and to solve this case. Because I think you guys, we have a lot of the pieces. We don't have all the pieces, but we have that. And let's see if we can figure out the why. And by figuring out the why, we may be able to figure out the who. Okay, so we know that there was a strap hanging out the back of the CRV. That was very, very shady. So let's go back to tow truck driver for a second. So tow / road assistance guy, his name is Nick. And we all say road assistance guy because we don't want to confuse with the Adventures with Purpose guy, who's also named Nick. So he came forward, and we know that his dash cage and the dispatch log, was turned over to law enforcement. So he hasn't been able to share that to corroborate what he's saying, but law enforcement hasn't come out and debunked it either. So I think that's really interesting. So what was the purpose of the phone call? And in my opinion, that belt hanging out the back of the hatch to road assistance guy, and tell me what you think about this. They needed to have prints for us of a strange person inside the car. And this is what all of how does my seatbelt work? How does it buckle? This is what all of that was about. It was to get his fingerprints onto the steering wheel, onto the gear shift, and onto the seatbelt buckles. And maybe they were originally planning to put her in the front seat. But being that we had of what happened, they decided that it would be better to have her in the cargo bay. Maybe they didn't want to move her. Maybe they couldn't move her. Or maybe they just thought that it would look more nefarious, being that they managed to get a strange guy's fingerprints into. So that's kind of interesting, and it gives us some insight as to maybe what they were thinking. Now, when this whole thing started, we all agreed that this could have been an abduction, right? The law enforcement was working an abduction, and we all talked about the fact that the car may have been placed to one of the local vacation rental houses, right? There were vacation rental houses located in the Truckee area, and we all thought that maybe her car had been put into a garage. So is this why, when law enforcement was doing its searches, it could not find Kiely? Because remember, she was just 55 feet offshore from where her phone last pinged. She was in 10 to 14 feet of water, and everybody said the water receded. It went down by 3 feet. Okay, so that puts it to 13 feet to 17 feet. Again, I think somebody with a snorkel gear could probably have found Kiely. I don't think that it would have been that difficult to find Kiely where her phone last pinged. So did law enforcement miss Kiely? I'm not so sure. I think that maybe after fingerprints were put on over at the lake, the Boca Reservoir, that she may have been put into a local house. And once law enforcement said that they were done searching Lake Prosser, then she was placed in Lake Prosser at that point. This is all my opinion, but tell me what you guys think. So imagine I'm not someone who I'm not going to name surprise when Adventures with Purpose comes out to do the search, right? Because they thought the lake had been already cleared by law enforcement and the search was done and law enforcement appeared to be moving on. But then Adventures with Purpose gets invited in and now they're going to search. But it's okay because they're going to search Donner Reservoir and they're going to search the Boca Reservoir. But this is very thorough, and they decided after they didn't find her at Donner or Boca that they would go back to Lake Prosser, even though been cleared, and search for her there. So that's what they did. They went back to Lake Prosser, searched, and within 34 minutes, they found Kiely inside her vehicle. And Nick Wren with Adventures with Purpose, his immediate reaction in finding her in the very back in the hatch with the belt hanging out the back of the car, he came right up and said he thought it was suspicious. And I do think that it was suspicious, right? So, we can either think that we have the, Barney Fife police that could not find her in 17 or 14 to 17 feet of water, or she wasn't there yet. And the tow truck driver, road assistant guy's information is so important. So that's another piece. So let's put that piece into our puzzle along with road assistance guy, the why. Why was he called out? And again, I think it was to get his fingerprints on the seatbelt and inside that vehicle so it would have a strange male's fingerprints. Remember, somebody already accounted for her fingerprints, right? She places the alcohol inside Kiely's vehicle. She says she and friends went back to Kiely's vehicle while she charged her phone and texted her mom and had some drinks. So her fingerprints would be in Kiely's vehicle. So that would already account for that, right? And she even had placed a couple of friends in there with her. And, maybe all that was true, but maybe it wasn't. What do you guys think? Let's continue on. To Sami's own statement, she arrived at the party around 9:10 p.m. on August the 5th. At 10 p.m., Mags arrived at the party, and she said that she was immediately approached by 5 boys, and she describes wanting her to do long hits, and this was prior to her boyfriend Ross, who arrived to pick her up, and at 10:10, Mags and Ross from the party. Around 9:30 p.m., 2 campers reported seeing cars coming into the campground. So that comports with Sami's arrival time. At around 30-ish, Sami says that the party, quote, blew up. It got really big. And she said that she was a little bit scared, but I don't know if she was that scared because we all know that she ditched her first ride and was trying to ride home with Kiely because she wanted to stay at the party later. So make of that comment what you will. Around 10:30 p.m., we have Kiely responding to a text message that Jagger sent earlier in the day. Also around this 10:30 time frame, Elsa also says that she sees Kiely for the very first time. Okay, so we have Elsa sees Kiely. She doesn't say, who she saw Kiely with. And we don't have any party pictures, as Robert Stana points out, right? There's no party at all of this whole thing. So if there's no party pictures, then do law enforcement have the party pictures locked down? What do you guys think? So let's just consider one more. Okay, so it, you know, did some really helpful things if you are somebody who maybe didn't want to have any kind of liability, right? But who was she really helping? Is she helping us get to the truth, or was she helping her friend? Her friend who had already incriminated herself. And remember, if you give alcohol to a minor, that's just a misdemeanor, right? But if you give alcohol to a minor and that minor is involved in something that results in serious bodily injury or death, then it becomes a felony, and it comes with serious fines and also community service and also jail time. And then you can pile other things on top of that. And Sami already admitted to us that she invited kids from the younger grades, right? Kids from the younger grades were invited to come to the senior farewell party to say goodbye to all of the seniors who were. So Mags has taken herself out. She went home with Ross. Jagger's been ruled out of incident, which again, that kind of was a big flag to a lot of you guys that maybe this was not an accident, because again, wow, Jagger from an accident. And Rian, you're right. Sami put herself into the frame with alcohol, and saying that they had different, they were sharing the drinks, right? They didn't have different drinks. She made sure to say that she was sharing Kylie's drinks and Kylie's sharing drinks. And so what was that for? Was that so that she could say that it wasn't spiked? Is that so she could say that nothing was spiked the drinks? But let's keep putting the pieces of this puzzle together, because you guys have done a great job of puzzle. So now we have road assistance guy with fingerprints on the inside of the vehicle, and then we have a big question mark as to when that placed in Lake Prosser. Did it go in prior and law enforcement was just bungled it and missed it? I'm not so sure. At first I was buying it, and the person that kind of changed my mind was actually Jane Doe number 2, when she came by with her incorrect weather information, when she came by with she didn't see Kylie with Sami, and and now we have them saying that, oh, Kylie fell in a hole. Is this to account for any cuts and scratches that she might have gotten? Because we know that there were fights going on at this party, right? We know there were fights going on at this party, and Sami was quick to characterize them as friendly fights. But from looking at the videos that I saw, this looked like, these people had boxing gloves on. It didn't look like friendly fighting, in my opinion. And could it have gotten out of hand with a little bit of intoxication? Put a 1 up if you think that this could have gotten out of hand, and put a 2 up if you think that no, it stayed friendly, and you're buying that. I'm curious what you guys are thinking. Sweet B says Sami isn't legal age to buy, so whoever brought the substance would be held accountable and charges would be pressed against them. I agree with you, Sweet B. I think that she was not of age to buy, but she is 18, so she would still be accountable if she provided it to any minors, right? She would have some exposure legally. Now law enforcement may look at this and be like, you know what, she is younger. We don't know what to think about that. We're not going to say that, we don't want to charge her. We feel like her life has already been damaged enough. And they may decide to go that route. But I think that they're still on the case, because I think that whoever provided these kids with alcohol, I think that is ultimately who law enforcement is probably going to hold accountable. I'm seeing a lot of ones. Rianne says one, Jenny C says one, Roxanne Williams says one, and Rianne says, does that sound iffy to anyone? Holly Golightly says one. Roberta's Nana says, Keith Townsend, my teen grandkids do take a lot of pics. It's about parties. I'm not a teen, not privy to the parties. I was of the opinion that no pics, it's odd, until I asked a high school senior. German Shepherd Mom says one. So yes, I see lots and lots of ones. I saw, I think, 1, 2 go by. So I think that's very, very telling. And when I conducted a poll to you guys, William Van Volkenberg gives a 1. When I conducted 98% of you guys in the poll thought that there was some kind of foul play involved. So let's continue on together. 30, and we don't have an exact time, but Sami just described herself generally at the party with Kiely. They were together and they were only apart for mere moments. She describes herself as sharing drinks with Kiely, and that they drank out of each other's cups. They went back to Kylie's car. They were getting more drinks, and they also charged Kylie's cell phone. And apparently there were other friends with them, but she's never named who the other friends are. So by saying that they charged Kylie's cell phone, this would all someone's fingerprints being on Kylie's phone, right? We charged her cell phone because we don't know who sent Kylie's mom, right? We don't know who sent that text. Somebody texted, but we learned during the Brian Laundrie Gabby Petito and was using Gabby's phone and actually texting, pretending to be Gabby, telling Gabby's mom that he was Gabby, telling Gabby's mom that they were going into a park that did not have phone service, right? To buy himself time to get home to Northport, Florida, where his parents lived. So did this happen in this case? Let's continue on, because we are putting the pieces of this case together. I think you guys have put a bunch of the puzzle pieces together, and I think that you guys are doing a great job at solving this case. So let's continue on. Let's continue on. And these friends have not come forward. So Sami also describes that Kiely charged her phone and texted with her mom. And we know that Kiely sent a message to her mom letting her know that she was going to be home around 11:30 p.m. So Kiely texted Lindsay Neiman, who is her mom, around 11:30 p.m. and tells her that she's going to be leaving the party in 45 minutes. So that places Kylie's supposed to leave the party at 12:15 a.m. on August the 6th. We know. Okay, so we know that Kiely was supposed to be home. She was supposed to be leaving and being home. She was going to leave the party in 45 minutes. So that puts her leave time at 12:15. And Sami knew this. So why is Sami telling us then that she came to say goodbye to Kiely, right? I'm going to come say goodbye to Kiely at 12:25 a.m. I told her goodbye. I told her I love you. I told her be safe. Is that something you always say to somebody at a party? Be safe? I don't know. Maybe. But again, it's, a very self-serving statement. And then by some bizarre chance, Kiely is calling her at 12:36 a.m. after her phone pings for the last time at 12:33. She's calling Sami to say, does she need a ride home? Now, I think that Kylie's phone did ring Sami, but I have major questions in my opinion, and everything I am sharing with you is my opinion. I have major questions as to whether or not this is actually what the conversation was about. because either A, Sami did not say goodbye to Kiely at 12:25 and tell her goodbye, I love you, give her a hug, right? Or B, Kiely was so intoxicated she completely forgot about this conversation just moments later. Or C, one of these two conversations didn't go down the way that Sami described it. And I'm curious, put up in the chat if you think it's B or you think it's C, the conversation didn't go down the way that Sami described it. What do you guys think? On what your opinion is on this. Catherine C says the fraternity at UNLV that had labeled friendly fights as well. Those fights led to the death of a student who died 4 days after fighting from blunt force trauma to the head. Wow. Melody's Coloring Cafe says something is very fishy. And everybody, I have the analyst, Holly Golightly, Pam Davidson, Mama Bear, Trudy Smallwood, all putting up C's. Sunshine says that she completely agrees. Paul Ford says C. Pat Wick says C. Keith Townsend says C. Just an Old Lady says C. John Joe says C. And Deborah says C. So I'm getting all C's. Okay, so everybody thinks that one of those two conversations did not take place. Don Hagerman, Sweet Pea, Rianne Evans, and Holly Golightly all are in agreement. And Holly Golightly says that the rules are supposed to be no hits to the head. But right, exactly. We, what could go wrong? We have a bunch of intoxicated teenagers doing a friendly fight without any kind of helmets on and boxing, but wearing boxing gloves. What could possibly go wrong, right? So something happened. And I think this is why we heard about Kiely falling in a hole. I think this was to explain any cuts or bruises. I think that, Sami's talking about charging Kiely's phone in Kiely's car, puts her fingerprints in the car. She puts the drinks in the car by saying they went back to Kiely's car for drinks. And it would account for her fingerprints on Kiely's drinks and Kiely's fingerprints on hers, because Sami doesn't know what law enforcement is going to find and what they're not going to find, right? And if you're just joining us, we are working together as a community to put the pieces of this puzzle together to figure out what happened to Kiely Rodni, because I think we already have a lot of the pieces and we're figuring out the why. And if we can figure out the why, we can figure out the who. So let's continue on together. Let's continue on. From Jane Doe number 2, if you can believe her, that around 12 or 12:15 p.m., the generator was switched off and either someone left with the generator or the generator stopped working. We don't really know what happened there, but we know that this was at the party, and it also would have. So this was really self-serving too, right? Wasn't it? And by self, I just mean serving a certain person or persons at the party, because by having the generator go out, now all of a sudden we have a reason for the mass exodus of the party at 12:30, right? We have the lights out, and then instead of putting the blame on anything that could have gone wrong with the friendly fighting, or somebody slipped something to Kiely, or she ingested something and it didn't go well for her, now she puts a boy with his car that opened up his doors with the lights on and the music blaring and him standing on top of the car, blocking Kiely's route out of the party. She puts him there right at 12:40 a.m. Right? So Kiely would have been forced to find another route to leave the party, according to Jane Doe too. So this is all very, very convenient if you happen to have been one of the organizers of the party. And the reason that I don't trust Jane Doe is she didn't seem to know the truth about what the weather was. I've already shown you that. She said it was raining. It was not raining. She said that 3 boys organized the party. We've already had someone tell us that she organized the party, but she says it's 3 boys, and the one boy from her high school just happened to not attend. Really? Come on. Come on, Jane Doe number 2. You can do better than that. And I am not blaming Olivia. I just want to make that clear. This is not on Olivia at all. She did what she was supposed to do, which is bring you guys the information. And if somebody wants to remain anonymous, she can do that. It's just in going through and looking stuff up that you just begin to see like holes in the story. But this doesn't go down to the creator who brought the information. So we don't ever want to hurt the messenger or shoot them. So I just want to make that really clear. So if you're just joining us, please subscribe to Reporter Room. If you're finding this to be interesting or helpful, giving us a thumbs up. So let's continue on together. And if you want to join the top chat, you just need to be subscribed for 1 minute and your comment will appear up here, and you can be. We are trying to solve this case together. We have a lot of the pieces of the puzzle, and now that we have law enforcement ruling out Jagger Westfall, why do you need to rule somebody out of a simple car accident? You don't, right? You don't have suspects in a car accident. So to me, that was a big giveaway. But let's continue on together. Let's continue on. Have turned off the music, so this would account for the 12:30 a.m. mass exodus that the two campers saw. We also hear that around 12:25 a.m. that Sami supposedly goes up to Kiely and says that she's going to be leaving with someone else. She says that she loves her, to be safe, and that she has another ride home. And she later states that she didn't want to ride with Kiely at that point because she thought Kiely was too intoxicated to drive her home. And it's really sad that she did not take Kiely with her, right? So why didn't she take Kiely with her when she left at 12:36 a.m.? Why not take her friend who was too intoxicated to drive? She's too intoxicated to drive me home. So I'm just going to find my own ride for myself. Never in that 12:25 a.m. conversation, if station even occurs, does she say, and I offered Kiely to come with me and she refused. She never tells us that because it didn't happen. It didn't. So to me, there is a reason that she probably she got a criminal lawyer, not a civil lawyer. A lot of people were worried about that. Not a civil lawyer. She allegedly got a criminal lawyer of some exposure. I think ultimately law enforcement are going to go after whoever provided the drinks to the minors and what other substances there will be. And this is why they need the toxicology report. But it's very interesting that they let her have those teen to teen meetups. And I just think they were giving her the rope. I find it very interesting that she wanted all of this information filtered through her, right? So you combine that, you look at tow truck driver guy, his description of who he thought he saw. We look at what he was being asked to do, which is show to buckle and unbuckle safety belts, right? That gets his fingerprints all over the safety belt. Now you look at how Nick Wren found Kiely. Kiely was in her vehicle. She was upside down in the back. Now, out. It had been shut in the hatch. It makes sense. And then we have Sami able to accurately describe the bull on the back of Kiely's car. Can you tell me what bumper sticker? Think about your best friend. The bumper sticker on the best friend. Now just think about more casual friends, because remember, according to Kate, they were not close friends. So how did she know this was on the back of the car? Maybe she just knew, right? Maybe. You would know. So the other Sharon says you would know if you pushed the car in. Mufas away says something happened at 12:30 when that fight broke out. That mass exodus, the road blocked off with loud music for her phone to go off at 12:33, 3 minutes later. In my opinion, that's a great point. That is a really great point. Sunshine says if Sammy's parents are attorneys, they should tell her to stop putting out these TikTok videos of her drinking and partying. Yeah, and what was the big thing that we saw in the TikTok video that came out today? I should have downloaded it to show it to you guys. They all had their cell phones on. All of them in that room. Every teen had their cell phone on filming it. So, but if you're just joining us, this is Reporter Room. Give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to join the top chat and participate. We are putting the puzzle pieces together in an effort to solve the Kiely Rodni case. We have a lot of the pieces of the puzzle. We're trying to figure out the why so we can figure out the who. So let's keep going. Let's continue on. Right? At around 12:40 a.m., it's been reported that two boys have some kind of an altercation or argument at the party, and I don't know how accurate or credible this is, but I'm putting it in the timeline because this is the information that we have. So Elsa thinks that Kiely left the party around 1 a.m. Now we know from Jane Doe number 2 that the music was out, the lights were out, and people were getting upset. They wanted to have music. It's a party. It's a fun night. So what they did was one of the cars got parked blocking the exit of the campground, right? And one of the boys was standing on top of the car, and then the doors were open and the music was coming out of the car. So how convenient is it for Kiely's friends that there was someone else blocking the exit to the campground that would force Kiely to try to find another route? That would explain how Kiely's car ended up in Lake Prosser. How Adventures with Purpose would find Kiely's car nearly two weeks, a little over 2 weeks after she disappeared. But we have this sighting from road assistance guy that places her car, reservoir. So where was the car in the interim? I don't think that law enforcement is Barney Fife. I just don't. I think a snorkeler would have found the car. And it just wasn't down 5 feet underwater. I think it was visible. And if you think about, CheckItTV finding the laptop, which is a much smaller item than a car, and her hairbrush and some of the other items, he was just using a paddleboard. He wasn't even in scuba equipment. He was just using a paddleboard. So I don't think that law enforcement missed the car. And when we thought it was an abduction, we all talked about the fact that there were empty vacation houses, right? There were empty vacation houses where a car could easily be stored. So is that what happened? And is this whole thing with Jane Doe, it's just setting off red flags for me, in my opinion, and I'm curious to know what your opinion is, because the story is very convenient to exonerate certain people. And it makes me wonder who Jane Doe number 2 really is. But please, if you think that this was an accident and you believe that there was somebody blocking Kiely's exit route out that night, even though campers say they saw a mass exodus from the party around 12:30-ish. That's an ish time. It's not an exact time. That suddenly when Kiely tries to leave at 12:40, she's blocked. Maybe, but maybe not. So let's continue on together. Let's continue on. So was Kiely trying to leave at that point? And was her route out of the Lake Prosser campground, was that blocked by this vehicle? And was she trying to find another way out of the get home to her mom in time? And then Lindsay Neiman reports waking up at 8 a.m. on Saturday morning and realizing that Kylie's not home. And when she checked, she had some kind of a phone locator installed on Kylie's phone. When she checked that, it showed that Kylie's last location was at 12 a.m. at the Lake Prosser campground. And this makes sense because we know that at 12 a.m. Kylie's phone for the last time. Also at 12:36 a.m., Sami says that she got a call from Kiely and that Kiely was asking her, did she still need a ride home? And this part has never like synced up. It's just never added up for me. And I don't know what you guys think about that, but it has never added up for me because why, if she just said goodbye to Kiely, giving her a hug, telling her that she loved her, stay safe, and she was going home with someone, why was Kiely calling her just, a few minutes later, asking if she still needed a ride home? Now, let's consider Road's guy now. Road assistance guy says he saw Kiely at the Boca Reservoir on either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Isn't sure. He said when he checked his GPS that it shows he was in that location on Saturday and Sunday. And he puts the time around 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. So law enforcement cleared Jagger, right? They came out and they cleared Jagger. They've never come out and said that road assistance guy didn't tell the truth, or they've had the footage. It was a misnomer. They've never come out and said that they thought that there was anything going on that was not right or not adding up with road assistance guy. And how convenient is it that we have two campers who are not part of the party? They're independent witnesses that witness a mass exodus around 12:30 of people leaving the party, right? But suddenly when Kiely needs to go home at 12:40, somebody's blocking her exit. I don't know. That just seems like it's very convenient for this to come out later. We didn't hear about this. We just heard about that this week. And I would just think that if somebody was blocking the exit for Kiely, that would have been information that we would have had up. And road assistance guy, in my opinion, he's like, to me, he's really taken this case to a different, we're all willing to accept the fact that Kiely had maybe driven into the water until he came forward and placed Kiely the Boca Reservoir on either Saturday or Sunday. And he thought at first that he thought it was either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. And remember, he's not a detective. He's not a detective, so he's not, taking notes or taking down. But have you ever called road assistance and not had them identify you in some way? You have to either read the number on your AAA card, right? Or show ID when they get there, or maybe both. They don't just let you, anybody can call for road assistance and so, the fact that his dash cam footage and the dispatch information was locked down and turned over to law enforcement tells us a lot of information, and law enforcement is holding everything very close to their chest. They're not coming forward with a lot of information. And if you think about other cases like the Casey Anthony case and the O.J. Simpson case, from their point of view, they don't want to, mess up their case. I feel like that law enforcement feels like they have something to prove, right? They didn't find Kiely. Adventures with Purpose found Kiely. So I know a lot of people feel like, they don't know what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. I'm not so sure. I'm frustrated with them that they didn't have the divers go back in to find the laptop and the hairbrush and we also know that the case transferred from the Lake Prosser Sheriff's Office to the Nevada County Sheriff's Office once they found Kiely. The case was transferred. So it could have just been the case was transferring. And then we heard the FBI was still involved in the case. And that was really interesting, right? 4 days before Kiely disappeared. And so why did they stay involved? And I think that somebody has to be held accountable. Somebody was providing something to underage kids, and somebody has to be held accountable. Now, I'm not saying Jane Doe 2 is some mastermind. I mean, clearly she's not, because she couldn't even get the weather right. But I do think that she was trying to protect certain people that are involved in this case. And therefore, I am taking her sightings out of our timeline. And also just adding the fact that there was somebody willing to come in and try to deceive us, putting that to the front, put a pin in that, put a red flag on that, because there's something going on here. So let's continue on together. So I hope it shows who was on the camera. When this all happened, the internet just went crazy, because the description he gave with the SF baseball cap, the hair sticking out, a little bit of acne, or maybe some freckles on his face, with a white bro shirt, and under. And I do feel so bad for Jagger, because this is my feeling about Jagger. Um, I I'm going to tell a little something personal. When I was probably around Jagger's age, maybe a year older, I found out that one of a boy that school had passed away, and I had stopped dating him and hadn't seen him for a year. But I still felt, really broken up. And to me, I do think that he did love you. I think he did love Kylie, and you know, a lot of the boys in the photographs, just even look at how the style is. A lot of the boys have short hair. I just, I don't know. I really felt bad for him. Had a lot piled on him. Laura, if you didn't understand the numbers, I was doing a poll, and I'm asking you guys to put up a 1 or 2 or 3, or an A or a B or a C, depending on the different questions to the poll that I'm asking. So we're doing an interactive live stream. If you're just joining us, we are putting together the pieces of the Kiely Rodni in an effort to figure out the why, so we can figure out the who. So the one person that has been race, and they didn't name anybody else, and you don't need to rule someone out of an accident. They could not say the manner of death and still say it was, but we think it was an accident. They haven't said anything like that. They haven't said anything like that. What do you feel like this was an accident? If you do, put up a 1. If you think it was foul play, put up a 2. And I'm curious what you guys think. Persephone Evans says, could be many of the guys we have seen. Right, exactly. So many of the boys have that cap. That SF cap is everywhere. Kuma says, yes, but hopefully the autopsy will reveal something. Yes, I agree. I'm seeing a lot of 2. So William Van Volkenberg, Rianne Evans, Holly Golightly, Diamond Diane, JK5, Don K, Pam Davidson, Angela Leary, Karen Texas, all putting up 2s. Lisa J, Pat Currency, Mama Bear says 1, but with a cover up. Okay, so a cover up, that would be considered foul play, in my opinion. Kind of an accident went wrong, and then they tried to cover up. And I actually think that is probably the most logical. We know there was friendly fighting. We've seen the photographs. We know that there were a lot of intoxication. What could go wrong with a bunch of teenagers doing friendly fighting? What could go wrong when you give a 16-year-old substances that she's never had before, wasn't used to, and she weighs, 115 pounds soaking wet. She was really tiny. So anyway, and the death certificate Billy Darling is telling us said the cause of death is pending. Well, we don't know. We don't even have a date. If you look at the Kylie's celebration of life, her parents couldn't even put a date on it. Because, and again, I think that's very telling. If they really knew for 100% certainty that Kylie had been in the water that whole time, then why couldn't they put a date on it. She drove into the lake 12:38 because someone was blocking the exit. Somebody that we just heard about now this week just came forward, but somebody blocked the exit, and so she drove into the water at 12:38 on August 6th. Law enforcement hasn't told us that, and they cleared Jagger not from an accident. You don't need to clear somebody from an accident, and I thought that was just a massive red flag, for all of us, because you don't need to clear somebody from a car accident. Billy Darling says they are using the date of discovery of the body in Prosser. That makes sense. Melody's coloring caption says, all I can say is Nick Rin saw something, and I don't even want to know what he saw. Yeah, we don't know what he saw. All we know is she had at least one shoe on, and we know that she was in the very back. So, and here's my other question. We know the car was found upside down. So if the vehicle is upside down, right, then we know that the seats come up like this, right? There's like the two headrests. If she was really in the front seat and drove into the water, the vehicle down. So how, if she in bodies float, right? She would have floated. How did she end up over the two seats, the front seat and the next row of seats, to end up in the very back? If the vehicle's turning over, how did she end up all the way in the back area with the seatbelt hanging out, slammed into the back of that car? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So I saw mostly twos. I saw a 1-1 with a caveat, and too blessed to be stressed, says Panic. Yeah, I don't think that this was like an intentional thing. I think that something happened, something went wrong, and we had a lot of people that weren't thinking clearly for various reasons, and tried to hide it, and maybe moved the vehicle. Maybe we're thinking about putting her into the Boca Reservoir, but was worried that law enforcement was going to find her. So they call out road assistance guy, make sure they get his fingerprints on the safety belts. That's the only thing that would account for him saying, he thought it was weird that he was being asked to buckle and unbuckle those belts. Everybody knows how to buckle a safety belt. I don't know, when you're just a little kid, you learn how to buckle a safety belt. So why was he being asked that? In my opinion, and this is only my opinion, and I want to know what you guys think, I think it was to get his fingerprints on the inside of the vehicle so they would have a strange male when the car was found. The plan was to put her into Lake Prosser and then maybe find her later themselves, or somebody would find her because she wasn't in very deep. And I think that back window was down and that other window was smashed to make that car, that they needed that car to sink fast. They didn't want it to be seen. They needed the car to sink fast, break the window. Maybe it was even broken while it wasn't sinking as fast as they needed. Break the window, get the water rushing in. But how, if the vehicle's upside down and the vehicle flipped upside down in the very back? It's possible she could have crawled back there. I'm not going to say that that's not possible. But I just find it so have this little space. She either had to have crawled back there as the vehicle was flipping, or she was already back there. She was already back there. And the road assistance sighting, to me, that is just such a big red flag. Roxanne Williams says, me too, Jessica. They were trying to frame the road assistance guy. Yeah, or just have a strange male's fingerprints in there, right? Because somebody already accounted why her fingerprints would be in there, right? She was sharing drinks. She was drinking out of my drink. I was drinking out of her drinks. We were sharing drinks. We went back to charge her cell phone. Okay, so now we know why her fingerprints might appear on that. And remember, these are they don't know, how much of CSI is real, how much of it's dramatized, what you can actually find. And law enforcement has to prove. We already saw with OJ Simpson and Casey Anthony that you can have a pretty decent case against somebody and still not be able to, and they really did need to be able to prove this case. Green Thumb Vet says, as far as cars sinking the windows, there would not be air pocket in the luggage area because air escapes through the back. Oh, wow, that's interesting. Frankie Baby says, I don't think so. I think she was already back there in a matter of seconds. The windows were open. She could have gotten out also. So I feel like she was already there. Yeah, I'm with you, Frankie Baby. I'm really worried about that too. I think that the road assistance guy, that's just like, to me, that's just such, he has no reason to come forward and make this up. He does not have a dog in this fight. He does not have a friend at this party that that I've ever heard. He doesn't have, and he was willing to go on camera and show his face to Adventures with Purpose. And we know there's more to that video than what we've seen. And they said they wanted to let law enforcement solve it. So I think we should. And I just think that it is very strange that law enforcement didn't see the car. So either we have Barney Fife law enforcement, if you want to believe that, with the FBI involved, or the car was not there when they searched Lake Prosser. And I don't know, But I know when we were looking at an abduction, we were all talking about the fact that there were vacation homes all around in that area that were here, and that it would be very easy to put her vehicle into one of those garages and bring it out at a later date. And we were all worried about that. Sharon Wilson says that she thinks the car was recording. The car was moving through the EDR, showing abduction. And this is why the black box is so important. That black box at her vehicle, and it does have a black box. That 2013 Honda CRV should have a black box, unless it was in some kind of other accident and was removed for some other purpose. It should tell us how fast was the car going. Did it brake? Did the airbags deploy? All of this information should be there for law enforcement. Lenham says everyone is forgetting that it was pitch black out there and that underwater, disoriented, she would not have had the bearings to crawl to the back. That's a great point, Heather. That's another reason of why it's so bizarre that she's all the way in the back. If the vehicle, you have the seats that are up like this, right? So you have the two seats with the headrest up here. So as the vehicle's upside down, so we're supposed to buy that her body sank and went underneath two sets of seats to end up in the back of the car. So she had to have either crawled back there or she was put back there. So Amber Lee Rose says, reporter room, I don't know what I'm getting a heart, so I'll take the heart, Amber Lee. I don't know why it's putting it out. Wollaston Home 1965 said a detective had said that the position Kiely was in, she was probably gone when they went in the water, probably hours before. I haven't heard that. I have not heard that. So that's interesting. Michelle said, why weren't police searching for her and told search for her 25 feet and no further? This should be the question. Well, they were searching for her, but they were starting to move on to a abduction theory. So, the question is, did law enforcement not find Kiely because she wasn't there? She wasn't there when they searched. Remember, they called off the search and everybody thought it was done, right? They were moving on to an abduction. Lindsay Neiman, who is Kiely Rodni's mom, came forward, and her best friend Marika started talking about an abduction. They thought Kiely had been abducted, and the FBI was working on that. So they were working an abduction theory. So did the car And then we have the right that just changed the whole timeline when we heard about this sighting from a road assistance guy, and he would have no reason to make any of this. He didn't have a reason to make it up. So we have the sighting from road assistance guy that places the car at Lake Prosser. We know we had dash cam footage. We know we have a dispatch that have both been turned over to law enforcement. Law enforcement has not come out and said, you know what, we checked it out. That was not Kiely. That would be so easy for them to just clear that up. It would not impact their case at all. But they haven't. And I don't know why. But I do wonder if they need to have that toxicology report. They already know the manner, probably, right? But they need to have the toxicology report to make their case, in my opinion. So Michelle said, no, they weren't. The police dive team were told to look for phone. They didn't look for her. I lost the comment. Sorry. Sharon Wilson says, what's the deal with Lindsay saying there was honor and silence? My kids would be screaming for answers. I don't know. And I was frustrated with Lindsay too, because I really wish, that she would have said thank you to Adventures with Purpose. But let's just put ourselves in Lindsay Neiman's shoes for 2 seconds. As a parents, as grandparents, as aunts and uncles, as brothers and sisters, let's put ourselves in her position. Her daughter, that she's going to be leaving to ask permission to stay later. This kid wasn't just staying later. She asked. So she gets a text, and then when she goes to sleep because she trusts her daughter, and when she wakes up at 8 a.m., realizes her daughter's car is not in the driveway, and when she goes to look in the bedroom, her daughter is not there. Just feel the hair on her neck standing up. But then she calls her Kiely's stepdad, right, to find out, has he seen Kiely? Maybe Kiely's, with him. Maybe she came home and already left again. She's, still hopeful. She's texting and calling Kiely, and she's not getting an answer. And then in a Hail Mary desperation move, they go to the Starbucks where they were supposed to meet at 9 a.m. to go on a camp out, hoping that she will show up, and she does not. So this is what Lindsay has been through, and then not knowing. So I think I don't want to push too hard on her. I think that this is somebody who's grieving, and one of the stages of grieving is denial, and another stage of grieving is anger. Those are both normal, healthy parts of going through the grieving process. So let's just let her go through the grieving process to get to where she needs to be. And remember, she's been through hell. She's been through hell. And my heart breaks for her. My heart breaks for her. Sharon Wilson says, I have 3 daughters and 2 grandkids. I would rather her home instead of the who's doing what and where with my daughter. I get the hopes of being dashed. Yeah, I think that, and then to, I just think she's been through a lot. And we know now that, Jagger is, reportedly staying with her and there with her. And I think that's really good. I think it's good for Jagger because I think he's grieving, and I think it's good for Lindsay. So I don't know what her honor and silence was. Somebody told me it was some kind of a quote, it was some kind of a quote. So maybe it was, just not something that was nefarious at all. Maybe it really just was a quote. And maybe, this was coming from a place of a mother who's being hounded by people who are telling her that her daughter isn't real. And we know there are people like that are out there, and that she's a crisis actor, not a real grieving mom, which of course is nonsense. So we know how the internet can be, right? We all know how you can get a few kooks out there, right? So we don't know what kind of stuff she was being put through. So that's my little pushback on behalf of Lindsay Neiman. So my heart does break. So Marie says, will we learn the truth? Well, will we learn the truth? Well, I think that we have put together a bunch of the pieces of the puzzle. I think we do know the why. And I'm curious if you guys are in agreement with the why, if it matches up, if what you think is the why. So in my opinion, the why is that something happened, something went wrong, either or with somebody slipped her something, or she had ingested something that was different than what she thought she was ingesting, and something went horrible and they panicked. If you agree with this why, put up a 1. If you believe that somebody was just simply was a matter of the fact that she couldn't get out and she made a wrong turn and drove into the water, then put up a 2, because that could also is a possibility. So I'm curious what you guys think of the why. What do you think the why is? Do you think the why is she just couldn't get out and was trying to find a different route out of the party? Or do you think something went wrong? Somebody panicked and they had to cover it up. So 1, panic, cover up, foul play. 2, wrong turn accident. What do you guys think? Debbie Z says 1. Penn Dizzy says a fight. Lady 32 says 1. Deborah says 1. Steve V says 1. Paul Ford says 1. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of 1s. Summer Thunder says 1. Jakey 5 says 1. I'm seeing almost all 1s. Sharon Wilson says 3. She thinks it was jealous girls and friends. Yeah, I didn't put that option. Rianne and Evans and Holly Golightly say 1. Cabin Life at Eden Spring 1. I can't even read them all. So I'm like seeing all 1s, and you guys can see for yourself up on the screen that most everybody thinks that there is something going on with that. And so that's really interesting. So now we have solved why. We know the why. So now the next step will be to figure out why, and why should help us figure out who. And to do that, I need a couple more pieces of the puzzle. And the big piece that we need is, who did roadside assistance see Kiely's vehicle at the Boca Reservoir? That will be the who, in my opinion. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I was going to do Summer Wells updates. There just aren't a lot of updates to give you guys on that case. I know that we did learn one thing since I saw you guys last, and that was that Cracking Cases said that they had a dog, but it wasn't a normal scent dog. And After Dark was thinking that maybe this was a cadaver dog. Did alert on one of the footprints at one of the Wells property, one of their neighbors' properties. Somebody carrying Summer. We always thought that maybe something happened, right? And we know from the dispatch on the Wells case that the dispatcher said, and it sounded like it was Dawn that called the 911, right? The dispatcher said the mother was out for a walk. So we know there were footprints found around the property. So was she set down by someone? We know Mom was out for a walk. Was somebody carrying Summer? And if so, who was it? Was it a stranger? Did Summer just wander away and then the dog alerted at that scent from something that happened a day or two later? Mom come back from a walk with Summer. And that's the update that I have for you. I want to thank you so much for joining me. Please give this video a thumbs up on your way out, and feel free to share it far and wide, and I will see you next time. I'm moving on to a members only live stream. If you want to join me there, you are welcome to join the channel. We would love to have you. Thank you to our channel members. Thank you to our producers. Thank you to our executive producers. and I will see you guys next time. Bye.